All right, in this video, let's practice making some Lewis structures. So here are 3 different molecules. Go ahead and pause this and try to build your Lewis structures from them. And then come on back and we will walk through them. All right, if you gave it a try, let's take a look. Let's start here with water. So with water, I have oxygen. Well, oxygen is going to have 6 valence electrons around it. And so I draw them around water, around oxygen. The net result is I have 2 lone pairs and 2 unpaired electrons that need to be bonded. I now have 2 hydrogens. Each of them has 1 electron. Well, I can then pair the unpaired electrons to each other. And what I end up with here is oxygen to a hydrogen, and 2 lone pairs. This would be the Lewis structure for water. Now, important note, when we build our structure here, I've got enough atoms that I could, say, pair differently. What if I tried to pair my hydrogens first? Problem is, they have no more unpaired electrons. Now nothing can go to that oxygen. If I did this, I'd have 2 separate entities that were unattached. I'd have an oxygen that hasn't finished bonding, and I'd have an H2 molecule. And so, well, when you have many things, there's a number of different possible ways you could attach them. Not all of them make sense. So in our case, we really need water to have the hydrogens attached to the oxygen. Otherwise, we can't complete the molecule. Let's look at HF. Fluorine will have 7 electrons around it. Hydrogen will have 1. And then we can pair the unpaired. And so HF really just looks like hydrogen bonded to fluorine, fluorine with 3 lone pairs. C2H6. Now this one is a little bit more complicated. It goes back to that same problem we saw with water. What do we connect to what? Is this carbon with a hydrogen in the middle and a carbon, and then other hydrogens? Is this a carbon and a carbon with hydrogens? Like, what is the order that we're going to try to start putting things together? Well, first thing first, put down your atoms, put down your electrons. So I've got some hydrogens. I won't even put them into a spot yet. Just have a bunch of hydrogens. Now I need to connect them. Well, hydrogen can only make 1 bond. So you can never put it in the middle. If you tried to have a carbon with a hydrogen here and another carbon, you could pair once and then the other carbon, it can't pair to that hydrogen. There's nothing to connect to. It fails. Hydrogens can only ever go on the ends of molecules. They can never go between them. So my 2 carbons, the only way they can possibly touch each other is to actually connect to each other. You can't put a hydrogen in between them. So when you have a larger molecule, a handy rule is always connect the non-hydrogen things to each other first. Now, they don't have to connect to all of them. They can do it through a line. One end of a chain is linked to the far end of the chain through all the ones in the middle. But since hydrogen can never be in the middle, all the non-hydrogen atoms have to connect to each other first. Now, well, I have 6 remaining unpaired electrons. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. And I just happen to have 6 hydrogens that all want 1 unpaired electron. And so we'll just move these over. pair the unpaired electrons. If we want to make it look nicer, carbon to carbon, and then each carbon goes to 3 hydrogens. And so here's 3 examples of molecules to make Lewis structures from.